Well, hello, everybody. It has been forever since I have been on here. I actually did a video a couple weeks ago, and I just didn't get to getting it posted. So I decided just to start all over from scratch from where I was at. But for those of you that were here for years before, but haven't been here for about a year, well, about a half a year, this is Family Heritage Living. I'm Leah. And we live on our homestead of 20 acres up in northern Michigan. My husband and I are in our senior years, and we have kind of a young family. And I feel like I should reintroduce myself because I haven't done a video since last summer. We have been doing videos since 2010, 2012, but I have not done a video since last summer. Last one I did, we were in the middle of doing some additions to our cabin, our off-grid cabin up in the UP of Michigan. And I think I gave you a kitchen tour, was one of the last things I did. And I had every intention of doing more, but life happens. And we began to deal with an issue that hit Ron. Ron is 63, and he started to experience some things that led to a series of events that we are now here in February. So, for those of you that have seen us and have stuck with us for some time, you'll remember a series that we did for a while called the Oldsteaders, homesteading in your senior years. Now, at that point in time, Ron, I don't think, had quite breached 60, and I had barely breached let's see, if he would just turn, so if he was in his 50s, I had just hardly hit 50. So, because he's 9 years older than I am. We don't feel, for the most part, we've never felt our age. We've always felt younger than our age. And people would say, well, what are you going to do when you get older? What are you going to do when this happens? What are you going to do when that happens? And we didn't have an answer. We're living off grid. Not having so many modern amenities is challenging, but it's something we've done for so long. If we haven't been totally off grid, we've been semi-off grid for years. Then all of a sudden last summer, we found ourselves where Ron woke up one morning and he said, I am so sore, I can barely move. Now, he had just been doing some major roof work, up and down the ladders, down on his knees, pounding everything in by hand. And that can definitely wear on you. And for him, for years, he's had a problem with one of his arms, has had a lot of discomfort in it. So we figured arthritis was setting in that arm. And also for years, he had some knee issues. Again, we figured just normal, typical wear and tear on the body, arthritis. But it wasn't anything that he never could work through. It would be a little discomforting. He might need to take a little bit of a pain med, but nothing major. Well, this was pretty major. The first week when it started, it became not concerning yet. Again, we were still thinking ups and downs, changing in the weather, because he does react to weather changes in his body. But by the end of the first week, and things weren't improving, they were getting worse. We were starting to get a little worried. And to make a very long story short, it became debilitating. So we got him into a doctor as soon as we could, but that wasn't that fast. It was not until October, from the beginning in August until we actually could get him in. There was like a 6-week waiting period to get him in. In that meantime, we took him to the walk-in clinic because it got so bad. He just couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't move. It was horrible. And we did, I did some research, of course, while we were in the waiting period, trying to figure out what we could do to help him. And he was already on all of the major anti-inflammatory herbs. He was on ginkgo, and he was on turmeric. He was on garlic. Ashwagandha. I'm trying to think, going down the list here. He would take apple cider vinegar, olive oil. These were daily things for him that he would do. He would take, seawater, or soleil water, as some people call it. These were He would take red pepper was one of his regular regimes. All these things that were ginger Ginger was another. So see, these were things that he has taken regularly and taken 2 to 3 times a day regularly, but he was getting no relief. So we turned to over-the-counter pain meds. We turned to Advil, Tylenol. We normally try not to take that stuff at all, but it was so bad that there was just no way we weren't going to do it. Nothing helped. And he was taking so many, I was becoming very concerned. So we got to the walk-in clinic, and they knew that he had a doctor's appointment coming up, but it was still, 3-4 weeks out. I guess by that time it was about 4 weeks out. It was about 2 weeks after I was able to make the appointment. And they put him on a steroid, and they gave him a pain pill. Now, neither one of those things is our first go-to, but this was a different situation. It wasn't a manner of working through a problem. It wasn't a manner of, trying some herbal home remedies. And for us, because we did preventative already, we didn't wait for a problem to happen. We were already on these type of herbal preventatives. His diet was fairly good at the time, but by this time, he was increasing in his carbs. And that will come to the story here in a minute. But the steroid, he got up the next morning after like 20 hours after taking the first steroid. And he says, I feel like a new man. I mean, he was moving. He couldn't even raise his arms up like this before. He needed help getting dressed. We were kind of worried, what was in our path. And we, Lord, whatever it is, please direct us, give us wisdom, because we don't have a clue what's going on. He had a pain pill. He was taking that twice a day, and he was on that steroid for 9 days. It went from a 60 milligram, then down to a 40, then down to a 20, and he was done. With each decrease of that pain med or that steroid, the inflammation began to come again. And after 9 days being done, he was back to where he was at. So the only thing we could do was wait. We contacted the doctor at the walk-in clinic to see if he could go back on the steroid if he was willing. And the doctor wasn't willing because he knew that Ron had the appointment coming up and wanted him to wait. So we get to that doctor in October, and she put him back on the steroid, and she put him back on the pain med. What we learned over the course of time, as we waited to get in with rheumatologists in our area, that anytime he was on the steroid, he was on the high levels of steroid, had to be 60, 40 at the lowest. The inflammation would reduce. And of course, you can't stay on that for long, but you also can't not move. So for you guys that have seen us before, Ron is really, just energetic, and he's just always been active. And that's one reason why I think he's never felt this age, despite having typical aging issues. So I'm not going to get too deeply into this story, because there was months of this trying with what steroid level can you get off it. And whenever he'd get off it, he'd go through the roof again. We are now, though, praise God, where he is on about 10 milligrams a day, and he is doing 75% better. He is also, he's continued to take his herbs and stuff, and we've added different ones to it. We've changed the regimen around. But the one thing that really seemed to help is we put him on what we call an anti-inflammatory diet. Basically, this diet, I think, is adjusted in many different ways, but it's a healthy keto. It's an anti-inflammatory. We refer to it as a whole food diet, and that has been hugely, hugely helpful. Now, the funny thing is I had a huge experience with this diet back in 2023. And it really changed my focus on food. Now, we've been organic for a long time, but we've also raising 4 sons, doing the work they do. My husband doing the work he does. Lots of carbs, lots of fillers, been on oftentimes a restricted income. So we got to make the buck stretch as much as we can. And sadly, good food is not always cheap food. And you can't always grow the things you need. So the point there is, high carbs often come in. But when what I learned over that time was the importance of fasting and getting beyond keto, going into keto, but then going into autophagy through a fasting window. And I was really thankful that I had learned all this stuff back in 2023, at the beginning of 2023, midway through, because I thought, you know what, this is what we need to do. We need to apply it to this and see if this isn't going to work. And it really has. It's been a game changer for him right now. Now, we still have a long road ahead of us, and we still have a lot of things to encounter as this particular thing goes on. The blood work never really revealed anything. He had tons of blood work done, and all it revealed is that he had inflammation, extremely high inflammation, like off the chart. But it didn't give any markers for like rheumatoid arthritis or anything like that. So there was never a pinning down of that what particular arthritis it is. I just know that it's receptive to steroid, and we also know now that it's receptive to diet. So as we move forward and continue to work on his healing and continue to connect to our aging in our lifestyle, we're trying to make things simpler where they hadn't been so simpler. So one example is, you guys have seen us grind with our hand grain miller. So requiring a lot of shoulder work. Grinding is very hard. It's not necessarily that it's even so hard, but it takes so long to get a lot done. And so it can be very labor intensive. Now, we usually have a rotation where, we all kind of give a hand at grinding, but Ron usually does the majority of the grinding. And so he can't do that anymore. And I've got many other directions that I need to go that I knew that I would not really be able to commit to grinding. And the whole grain, not just any grain, but a heritage grain or an ancient grain was really what we were focusing on for him, because there were certain vitamins we needed to get into him that came from that, certain fibers that, the benefits of fiber that came from that, and the complexities of the grain. So we went ahead and bought an electric grinder, and it has been I'm telling you, it's the best Homestead product. And I know a lot of people have them that aren't on the Homestead, but it seems like all homesteaders have a grinder. And for us, that electric grinder has been the best thing. So a couple things have come from this. First off, we're going to pick up where we left off. I can't change yesterday, can't change our absence. So we're going on from here, and we're going to talk a lot about aging on the homestead, and we're going to talk about whole grains and using them. I've always been a big advocate of home cooking. I've been a big advocate of grains and doing everything you can from scratch. But I also know that too much of the ease of store-bought food, even though might not be boxed food, it might not be canned food, it's still go buy a bag of flour and put it in there. Go buy a can of this and use that. We want to focus on grains. I've been learning some things I didn't know about grains. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's amazing how much you can learn that you don't know. So like I've been watching one Homestead channel, Rose Homestead, and she's really focused on using the whole grain. And she said, and she's been doing this for years too, and she said that she learned not that long ago, I'm going to say within the past 2 years. I'm not exactly sure how old her video was when I saw it. So I'm just going to kind of give it a span here. I'm going to say probably within the last 2 years, she learned to soak grains, and it made a huge difference, or soak her flour made a huge difference in her end product. And so I've been experimenting with that, and I'm not kidding you. It has been a game changer on the whole grains and how to use them, sifting them. It's just amazing, all these little things that we lose as our food has changed through the decades. So anyways, so those are two things that we are going to do some videos about. We're also going to talk about the change in our family. When we started YouTube, and our third child was just born. And then 3 years later came our fourth child. Josiah was 13 at the time, and RJ, that would have made him 18. He was our oldest. Well, fast forward now from 2010 to 2025, and we've had a lot of changes in our lives. Now, we still have young children. Zeb isn't so young, but he is young to us. He's 15, and Simeon is 11. He's our baby. But we're in that weird window. You know, Ron is 63. Or is he 64? See, I can't even remember. Let's see. What is the year? So he'll be 64. He'll be 65 this year. Nope, he'll be 64 this year. I'll be 55. And so we're seniors. We're seniors with a couple of young children still at home. So we kind of have insight on both ends, but we don't have grandkids right now. So there's a lot of things that for homesteading, for faith-based homesteading, I think there's a lot of area that we could cover that maybe not so looked upon. There's a lot of good homestead channels out there, a lot of good channels out there on younger families, young women, young men, but we kind of just really want to focus on age and equipping ourselves as homesteaders and as Christians to change with the seasons of our life, to embrace those things, to learn how to get past the hurdles, and just to share a journey. So we are back, and we are going to stay focused by the grace of the good Lord. We're playing with changing our channel theme, and so when we come back, we might not be Family Heritage Living any longer. The reason for that is not that our core has changed, but as I was just saying, our family dynamics have changed, and we want to kind of be focused on our faith and our homestead. So we're thinking about changing our channel's name to the Biblical Homestead, simply because we're a Bible-believing family and we homestead. So, all right, for those of you that have hung in there and haven't given up on us, thank you. And for those of you that are here for the first time, we're glad you're here. Until next time, God bless.